Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another book reading with me, Richard Vobes. Listen with Vobes. Just making some adjustments here in the studio. I've been dashing about madly as ever. Hope you're all well. Thank you for joining me this afternoon on the 15th of December 2020. Hope you can hear me okay and see me and all of that. Needed that cup of coffee. Had a bit of a headache today. It went and then it's just come back, which is irritating. A big thank you to Dave Till, who very kindly sent me, I don't know if he watches this particular show, a whole load of OS maps or road maps, street maps, all sorts of ancient looking maps. Look at that, lovely old maps. I just love old maps and things. Even if one doesn't follow them now, they're just great old things to have and own and look at. I mean, to me they're the same as having books, really. You can look at routes that once were and how they've changed. And they might come useful for a new set that I'm doing, so that would be good. The Shillings Guides. Look, Sussex. And in there's for a shilling, you just get a number of interesting, little guide of Sussex and what have you. Anyway, interesting. The New Forest, Portsmouth and Southsea, Pathfinder, 1996. I don't know where that is. Where is that supposed to be? Oh, it tells you all the Pathfinder maps, I suppose. New Forest from the Forestry Commission. Anyway, a whole load of maps. That came in the post today, so thank you very much. Which is very nice. I should just put them down there for a moment. And to Bob Patterson, who sent me this card from Wales. I don't think you live in Wales, but he says I haven't been there for ages. Who sent me this very nice book on windmills. And there's some very beautiful pictures and illustrations, as you can see, of the state of windmills. I don't know when this was published. First published in 1975. So, nice big pictures of windmills to refer to. So thank you for that. Absolutely lovely. Very kind. Thank you very much. So let's say hello to a few people before we get cracking. If I can find the hello to everybody bit. I want the live chat, really. So we've got the lovely Julia out there. Hello, lovely Julia. Turbo Stream, good afternoon to you. Linda Kane. Charlie Cooper, hello to you. Tall Podge from Guildford, nice to see you. Linda Kane says, just back from a bracing sunny walk along Worthing Beach and Pier. Edward Moulding says, good afternoon. Billabong O'Neill, The Green Man. Dave of Your Turbo Stream, I've already said. Philip Hammond and Mary, good afternoon. Rich and Julia and everyone. Justine Jones, hello. Any fig rolls left in the biscuit tin? Oh, you'll be lucky. You'll be lucky. John F., good afternoon. Lee Lawson. Peter Coombs from the Cotswolds. Sounds nice down there in the Cotswolds. I hope the weather is nice down there where you are. Michael White, Any Chocolate Fingers. Dudley Sawyer, good afternoon. And Nigel Sadler. And a few people, no doubt, as well. Cheers. I've got a cup of coffee. I may not be quite as mad or as energetic as I was yesterday. I've got this throbbing head, and I thought I had a paracetamol that I could take, but I think the parrots have eaten them all, so you just have to bear with me. Right, we are on chapter 16 on our book on Southern English Roads by John James Hissey, which will be good, hopefully, and I hope I can read well today. I'll do my best. Julia and I went out for an informal walk, really, today. Made just a very relaxed video after the last couple of Border Walks videos, which take quite a lot of energy and effort, as you can imagine, trying to remember all the stuff that one's researched and then trying to put it into coherent order on the fly, which is not easy. I used to have fig rolls in my grand's house in York. I love them, says TurboStream. Yeah, I used to like fig rolls. Actually, I haven't had a fig roll for a long time. I'm gulping this coffee down rather quickly because it's warming me up. Okay. Chapter 16. Early in the morning... Let's move that over there. Early in the morning, we took our usual tiny tour of inspection before starting on our day's exhibition. Dorchester charmed us by its clean, bright appearance and its pleasing look of quiet and contented prosperity, to say nothing of the civility of its inhabitants as far as we came in contact with them. In the churchyard of St. Peter's, just above our hotel, we noticed a bronze statue, set on a pedestal, of a man with an open book in his hand. The pose of the figure was natural and easy, graceful and pleasing. The sculptor had manifestly not striven for effect, and therefore was effective. This is a wonderful power and charm in restraint that so few artists seem to realise. They fail too often by telling us all they know and leaving nothing to the imagination. On the pedestal below we read the statue as follows: William Barnes, 1801 to 1886. Zoo, now I hope his kindly fierce, is gone to vind a better place, but still with Voke a left behind, he'll always be a kept in mind. Yeah, you make of that what you will. I have no idea. There are, and have been, so many notable people in the world whose numbers ever increase, and it's almost impossible to keep them all in memory. And I inwardly confess to myself the inability to call to my mind the name of William Barnes from amongst those collected together in the ever-lengthening roll of fame. So I sought information from an intelligent passer-by. "Not know who Willie Barnes was?" he exclaimed, in tones that suggested to us a suspicion of reproach. "Why, I would have thought everybody knew him. He was a great Dorset poet, and wrote his poems in the good old Dorset dialect, like the notice here. What Burns is to Scotland, Barnes is to Dorset." We thanked the stranger for this information, and returning to our inn, ordered the horses to be put to, and were soon on the road again. Clearly wasn't very keen on whatever his name was, Willie Barnes. Let me have another slurp of cough. The weather had been very fine ever since we started on our wanderings, but when we left Dorchester, dark, ominous-looking clouds were gathering on the horizon, which foreboded a thunderstorm. Not an unlikely thing to happen after the heat of the previous day. So threatening did the weather appear that, had we not actually started, I don't think that we should have ventured forth, but having once started, we both agreed that it would never do to turn back. However, as we drove on, the clouds cleared off in that wonderful manner they do sometimes in England, and all was sunshine and serenity by the time we reached Charminster, the first village on our way. I like the English climate for its very faults. It is interesting because so fickle and uncertain, and a storm makes the sunshine that follows so much more enjoyable, besides freshening up the landscape. I verily believe our day's pleasure was vastly enhanced because of the early vision of those storm-suggesting clouds. They made us appreciate the fine weather we had all the more. As we passed through Charminster, our road led us close by the church, and here what a sight met our astonished gaze. The churchyard was turned into a veritable builder's yard. The body of the poor old church was completely gutted, it being windowless, floorless, and doorless, We were relieved to find that it was not roofless too. Masons were busy at work within and without. Stones were being chiselled and mortar being mixed in the erst quiet God's acre. The flat tombstones, we noted, came in handy for the workmen. We had come upon the restorer in the supreme height of his glory. Remarked one workman to me as I glanced over the wall, in reply to my astonished or grieved look, I suppose, "We're restoring her. She'll look like new when we've finished." And we saw no reason to doubt the statement. "But will she be as good as she was when she was new?" we ventured to query. "Why, sure she will," the prompt reply was, if not convincing. "We'll make a thorough good job of it." The modern British workman versus the masterly and trained medieval craftsman, and oh, ye gods, the confidence of the former. Well, all I can say is I heartily wish that the medieval mason had built the house I live in. After this, I should have driven on, but a sudden impulse, one of those things that comes without reason, impelled me to cross over and take a glance inside the poor old fane. Just approaching the doorway, we came full upon the rector, or curate, I'm not sure which, chattering to the foreman of the works, or it might have been the arch-restorer himself. The clergyman was most courteous and kindly gave us permission to look round, besides giving us full particulars and proceedings. It appeared, although to our authority, that before the restoration of the church it was in a very bad way. It had a plastered ceiling, whitewashed walls, the plaster and the whitewash on the walls being nearly half an inch thick, the old wooden pews, the wooden floor, and other abominations. And now the building was being restored, as far as possible, to its pristine condition. When the floor was taken up, we learnt that the vaults below were found to be in a shocking condition, some half full of water, in which the coffins lay, rotting, and the stench was horrible. The vaults were already filled up with solid concrete, and one could not wonder how it was that no epidemic had broken out amongst the congregation sitting there confined Sunday after Sunday over such a mass corruption. The church being in a low situation and the water getting into the vaults, of course, made many matters worse. But there are doubtless many other old churches in similar plight today. It was a gruesome revelation to us, and the detailed particulars of the site displayed were... I'm not reading very well today. I think this headache is giving me a bit of jip. It was a gruesome revelation to us, and the detailed particulars of the site displayed when the floor was removed and the vaults exposed to view with their ghastly contents haunted us for many a long day afterwards. One burly old farmer, we were told, nearly fell into the vault beneath the pew. There was only a few old rotten planks between him and it. We were not sorry to change the subject. During the alterations, we understood that much perpendicular work had been revealed, especially some pillars supporting the tower, to which our attention was called. But these had been so tooled and pointed up that they looked as though they had only recently been erected. All the ancient uneven surface had been scraped away and made smooth and precise, with an utterly uninteresting mechanical result, of the kind of which a modern builder loves, because he cannot do otherwise. It is the limit of his art when he builds as well as he can, and that he seldom does, because he has no real pride in his work. It is comparatively easy to be simply precise. It calls for no thought, for the workman is turned into a machine of flesh and blood, and it suggests nothing in return. Ex nihilo ex nihil, or some such bits of Latin of which I have no idea. Here and there in the tower, the letter T is carved in a curious scroll fashion, possibly the initial of the founder, or it may be that of Sir Thomas Trenchard, who largely gave to the building at a later period. It is interesting what he says there. I'm just pausing for a moment. It is interesting what he says there about the modern builder doing, stuff that is, he's just working as hard as he can to make it do as best as he can, and the lack of the lack of soul, I suppose, is what he's getting at, that you would see in the earlier Mason. And I wonder how true that is, that the earlier Mason was not just doing the same, but just time has eroded what we see, and also our outlook, our modern day sensibilities with those of the time, and what they knew on how to do things. But that said, I think it is true how man has turned into an autonomous machine, and the pride that they have in their work it's just a matter of getting it done to the spec that it's required, and then going off shift, going home down the pub to the missus to feed the kids or whatever, instead of what I imagine once was an immense pride driven by the fact that in a lot of places like religious houses, God was looking over them, and of course they wanted to do it to impress their God instead of just sufficient to impress their employer. I don't know if that's true, but it's just a thought. As we drove up the narrow Cerne Valley from Charminster, with the gentle, sloping, tree-clad hills rising up on either side of us, and the crystal river Cerne gliding, gurgling and plashing down through leafy overhanging woods. Plashing, you don't hear that very often, do you? And past the greenest of green meadows, now turning a slothful old grey millstone in a leisurely way, as though haste were a thing unknown in this peace-haunted valley, now loitering along in a lazy mood, undisturbed by so much as a ripple. We thought this little travelled glen one of the surpassing loveliness, but the subtle charm of the scenery defies analysis and beggars mere written description. The nearest word that I can coin at all to convey the impression of our soothing surrounding is peace bestowing. Well, that's a dreadful description, isn't it? Peace bestowing. These bloody long sentences that the Victorians used is very annoying. That sentence, I'm just looking at that sentence, is a paragraph in itself. As we drove slowly up the narrow Cerne Valley from Charminster, with the gently sloping tree-clad hills rising up on either side of us, and the crystal river Cerne gliding, gurgling and plashing down through leafy overhanging woods, and past the greenest of green meadows, now turning a slothful old grey stone mill in a leisurely way, as though haste were a thing unknown in this peace-haunted valley, now loitering along in a lazy mood, undisturbed by so much as a ripple, we thought this travelled glen one of surprising loveliness, but the subtle charm of the scenery defies analysis and beggars mere written description. There you go. That's just one sentence. I beg your pardon, it has another sentence there. The nearest word I could coin to at all convey the impression of our soothing surroundings is peace bestowing. So sometimes when I'm reading it, I'm struggling to think, where is this going? Where is the end of this? And so that's time I listen to myself reading it and I think, oh, I read that with the wrong intonation. So I hope that people do get the gist of sometimes when I'm trying to find where the intonation should be on the fly. All things seemed to us so tranquil and mellow as we journeyed on. The old world villages, time-toned farmsteads, and low-roofed cottages. It drives me mad with these time-toned and what did he have? That old world, and these sort of hyphenated words he uses. It's like, think of a different word if you've got to keep putting two together to make what you're trying to say. It's really irritating. I'm a bit irritated by this today. Sorry about this, because I've got this headache. All things seemed to us so tranquil and mellow as we journeyed on. The old world villages, time-toned farmsteads, and low-roofed cottages appeared to vie with each other as to which could be the most picturesque, and eye-pleasing. Such buildings smack of the soil. They seem as much a natural growth as the grass or the trees around. They are the very poetry of civilization. Nowhere had modern progress placed an ugly blot on the fair landscape. We seem to have discovered a veritable Arcadia. The Cerne Valley has the gift of beauty, but so far the gift has not been a fatal one. It has not attracted the railway, nor the tripper. It lies happily apart from the tourist track. Here we felt far removed from the fevered hurry and the rush of the steam-driven world. Here, for a time, we could contain our souls in peace. We had left the fussing and fuming locomotive out of sight and sound for at least one whole day. Even the ubiquitous telegraph lines did not follow us. It's interesting. I think it's interesting how he has a hatred of railways, quite rightly so in many ways, and I wonder, it just makes me think, when I read this, it makes me think that the intrusion of the modern world, the beginning then at the turn of the century, or the end of the last century, the end of the century before the last century, of course, the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, the changes that came in, and we read it, don't we, in the books that we've been listening to. So many people are talking about it. And I mean, you know, in modern world, we might moan occasionally about the new rabbit hutches that are going up, the new builds and things. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is the same distaste for the modern building as vivid as it was then? And the reason I say that is because in my mind, thinking about this as I go along, I feel like the intrusion of these modern ways was more stark than it is today. I mean, we're kind of used to having modern buildings and things going up, and unfortunately, thanks to the 1960s and councils, you know, a lot of the older buildings which we would value today and have had listed, which they just swept away because they thought they were redundant, and in its place put up this brutalist rubbish, and then that's now being, you know, a lot of it's being swept away, or this modern 1960s utilitarian buildings that are ghastly to look at, that purely serve the purpose they're built for, but have no beautification at all or artistic merit in them. And I can't help feeling that these authors are feeling the pain more than we feel the pain today, because we're just saying it's more of the same. It's more of, it's further uglification of Britain. Whereas these, I think, were seeing the landscape for the first time. This intrusion was coming in, and it must have been more of a shock. Unfortunately, you're all talking about biscuits. I feel a little bit on my own with that theory. But anyway, there we are. It is well both for body and soul to escape now and again to such a rest-giving spot as this, to give oneself up entirely to the pervading serenity of the quiet scenery with its soothing calm. Hither the monks of old came in search of seclusion, and found it, and they were no bad judges of a suitable resting place for souls weary of the burdensome of the world, and here, in the heart of the lovely vale, they built themselves a lordly abbey, though perhaps more humble building would have been better in keeping with their profession and their faith. Following the gentle windings of the river, our road wound in and out with many a graceful curve, each fresh bend in the way revealing to us some new beauty. So we drove on, and ever kept in a... we drove on and on, ever kept in a delightful state of expectancy. Each prospect, as it opened out, seemed fairer than the one before. Our stage that day was nothing but a succession of pictures. The next village we passed through was Godmans Stone. Its old gabled cottages with their water-toned roofs, all green and grey and gold. Its small and ancient church, whose hoary walls told of pious builders, dead and gone to dust ages ago, formed a very pleasing picture of rural felicity. Here the river, for a moment, winds away from its sylvan solitude, and widening out a space forms a tiny bay by the roadside that does duty for the village pond. A stilly bit of backwater, with scarce the sign of a current thereon, in which the cotters, ducks, were swimming and diving in blissful contentment. It might have been the sunshiny day. It might have been its lovely position, bosomed in the wooded hills. It might have been our happy, healthy frame of mind that beheld beauty everywhere that morning. But whatever the cause, we thought Godmans Stone was one of the most charming and retired hamlets we had come upon for many a day. Shall we have a look at Godmans Stone? Godmans Stone. Let's have a look at Godmans Stone for a moment and see if it is one of the most beautiful places on this planet since time immemorial. Godmans Stone, Dorset. Let's have a little gander. Wait, I want to go into maps. Let's have a look. I mean, it's just a drive-through by the looks of things. But that's okay. Let's I don't know which direction he's going in. But let's assume Godmans Stone. Yeah, so I wonder if some of these thatches have gone in the last 100 years, whether these old stone buildings, I mean, clearly they wouldn't have had this mechanical tiles on them. Well, I say mechanical, I mean, you know, yeah. Concrete. Are they concrete? They look like concrete tiles, horrible things. And that has got slate on it. Now, he didn't like slate, but I think slate looks nice. Look at that line of bricks down here. It's interesting, isn't it? Clearly some old barn, presumably, because the old barn windows look... Oh, no, wait a minute. That is the surrounding of a window, bricked up. I love all this. Look. What is that? The old fireplace? Was there a building on this side? Was there a chimney here? Could that have been the door originally? Look at all these bricks. Great chunks of sandstone. Or limestone, maybe. And then another window. But originally, presumably on a farm and some old barn is what I'm getting. Oh, here we are. Here's a thatched cottage. Look. But I bet it didn't look like that. Look how horribly straight all that is. Isn't it? Don't you think that's ghastly? There's no life there. And the grass and everything. I mean, it's very nice superficially, but to my eye, it's that, like, there's absolutely no character. They're all like this. This is the modern way, isn't it? Very clean and clinical. Is it just me? Am I being cynical today? I feel I'm being very cynical. I love this chimney. Look at that lovely chimney going up there. And these different stones. Brick here. And then this. And what's in there? Little layers of stuff. Is that just me? Am I just in a grim mood today? I think I am in a grim mood. I mean, the thing about that is it's no different really to anywhere else. Well, of course it is different to places, but I wouldn't single it out as being anything spectacular. Where's that barn? I'm curious to see. Oh, there's where we were. Yeah, look, you can see that was a farmstead, wasn't it? I bet if one looks on old maps, that will be some old farm, and then possibly the farmhouse. Yeah, field farmhouse. There we go. Field farmhouse. That's the old farmhouse. There's some barns. You can see the layout, can't you, of how it would have been. And then presumably that's his farm. Oh, there's a drop in the hillside there. It's interesting. Yeah. What a wonderful patchwork of stone and brick in that building. Absolutely. Cart flap. Oh, cat flap, says John. Oh, yeah, I wonder if that was actually a coal, for coal chute or wood. It's a one-road strip village, says Nigel Sadler. One-road strip. Like a ribbon development. Lee Lawson, yes, that Nigel said, and the thatch cottage 100 yards further up. Yeah, there we go. Lee Lawson, not that high, Julia. The pavement outside the cottage has risen by about 4 inches. I know that because we have a photo from 1890. I'd rather see those than rabbit hutches. Well, of course, yes, of course. That's cool. Field farm. Yep, we got there. Anyway. So let's get back to the story. Interesting, isn't it? I love looking at that and discovering that all out. But because none of these places are working anymore. And do you know, I get these days, and I shouldn't really talk about this. I should be reading the book really, but I get these days when I do feel wretched for this country. I feel that you see a village like that, which clearly was pretty much, I guess, coming to the end of its life as a working village when he visits, which is why, although he writes in his flowery way with these, silly words and things and what have you, and not so skilled as people like Edward Tickner and Tickner Edwards even, it's so interesting to get that general opinion and to understand the feeling from somebody, okay, so relatively educated person here, who's writing and enjoys getting out and about and visiting places, that feeling of what somewhere was like, and then you go and look at it now, and it's so sterile, it's clinical. To the degree that the thatched roof just looks... is it just me? Is it just me that feels this way? Or I just feel like the life is sucked out. We're almost sometimes I'm looking at a skeleton of the village now. There's nobody in them. You walk around these villages, there's nobody there. There's nobody leaning on the wall to have a conversation with. The kids aren't running around in the streets. There's nobody working on the fields. There's these massive, great big cars in their driveways or parked outside. People who don't really have any connection with the countryside or country belief or country ways or country traditions at all. And, they wheel out their plastic bins ready for all of that, and they've got all their services inside that's all machine and mechanical, and I'm of the 21st century, but I feel that I'm also left behind. I don't know. Edward Moulding says picturesque, an aesthetic ideal introduced from Italy to English, cultural around 1780, that kind of beauty that is agreeable in a picture. There you go. Turbo says, be thankful you don't live in Birmingham. Some of the goddamn awful buildings we have here. Yes, I know, I've seen them. Michael White, we are being run by globalists who care about money now. Why can't the globalists just get their own bloody print machine and print as much money as they jolly well like and sit there on it, make armchairs out of their money and sofas so they can sit on it? That's what they need to do, and leave the rest of us who actually enjoy the natural beauty of the world alone. It must be just me, because you're all keeping very quiet. Dear, oh dear. Oh well, never mind. Get back to reading. Right, anyway, so he is in this Godmans Stone that we just had a look at. Perhaps it might so be that were we never here again, we would see things differently. For after all, the poetry of a scene lies greatly in the eyes and momentary mood of the beholder. I guess that's very true, isn't it? We see mainly what we look at. We see mainly what we look for. So two artists' pictures of the same place painted at the same time differ from one another because they saw what they saw was from what they saw. Just read the words, Vobes. I've just often put in my own words. Because they saw what was before them differently. Sentiment, too, is a very great deal to do with our ideals and ideas of beauty. I was told by an American citizen that a countryman of his, an artist, had been away in Switzerland painting in the company with a famous English art critic and author, and whilst the art critic sat down with delight to draw in full and faithful detail an old tumble-down chalet, whose bent roof and uneven wooden floors were full of subtle curves and wonderful hues, mixed with soft grey shadows, the American artist was content to sit idly by, discontentedly doing nothing. After a while, observing that the thoughtful American was not working, the critic exclaimed, "Why don't you paint that lovely old chalet? It's as beautiful as a dream in colour and in form." And the American's answer was curious. "Well," he said, "I just guess I can't paint that. I don't see the beauty in it that you do. The roof suggests wet coming in. The walls suggest draughts and chills and misery for its inhabitants. The whole place suggests painful poverty to me. I can't paint it. I just don't see any beauty in the decay that causes human suffering." And that's actually quite interesting, and I think that's very true of Americans generally, seeing as they knock things down after 20 years, and, you know, they have very little history. And yet they'll go ballistic when they see our history. No disrespect to any Americans watching, of course. Another day, as I've said, should chance bring us here instead of a cheerful sunshine filtering down through fleecy clouds, the sky might be lowering and of laden grey. A sullen, steely east wind might be blowing. The woods might be blotted from sight by misty rain. Our mood might be wholly different, and under the changed circumstances, Godmans Stone might fail to find any charm in our eyes. As we drove on, the valley increased in beauty and reminded us somewhat of that of Llanthony in Wales, wherein also the monks had built themselves an abbey. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I'm sticking with it for the moment. No artist ever had a finer eye for scenery than those knowing monks of old, I trow. I trow. It would be interesting if we could obtain a faithful and unprejudiced insight into the inner life of an early monastery, to know the real monk, not the poetic creation of his friend, nor the black picture of his relentless enemy. We reached Cerney Abbey about midday, and found it a quaint and very interesting little town. Here we obtained comfortable accommodation at an old stone-built hostel, rejoicing in the not very appropriate title, considering its age, of the New Inn. We entered this by an old-fashioned archway in the centre, above which still runs the ancient legend Posting House. And a real live posting house it is. For if you have to travel from or to Cerney Abbey, go by road you must. It was a clean, two-storied, long, low building, that ancient hostelry, and we were shown into a cool and cosy parlour, much to our liking on that warm summer noon. Here we were close to the ruins of Cerney Abbey, but there was not an engraving or even a photograph of it hanging up in the inn, which shows how happily infrequent is the genus tourist in these parts. Genus tourist in these parts. For at all sight-worthy places that the tripper haunts, I have ever noticed that the local inns and shops about at all sight-worthy places that the tripper haunts, I have noticed that the local inns and shops about abounds in photographs. At Cerney we could not even purchase a photograph at all. This mattered not a jot to us, for we would take our own, but it did prove what an unsophisticated place Cerney is, and that it may long remain. So is my hearty wish. I have made a mental note to Hie, H-I-E, and there's a word even I can't even think how you pronounce, H-I-E, to Hie to that unpretending little inn some day, armed with a goodly stock of colours and sketching materials, not forgetful of the camera, and to spend a delightful holiday sketching amongst the ancient quiet of the woods and hills and streams around. Gosh, let's just go and have a look at that, because I'm just can't read today, and it's one of those days. Where is he? Cerney Abbey. Let's have a look at the village of that. Give the Vob's brain a little break. If I can get out of bloody Google, get out of there into the search engine again. Here we go. Cerney Abbey. Why aren't you going there? Dorchester, yes, go. Go, just go there. This isn't Cerney Abbey. Oh, here we go. And there's the new inn. All right, let's pop down to have a look at the new inn first of all. If we can get there. There it is. Wow, look at that. That is a posting. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Those Georgian windows. Is that slate? That's not slate. Is that well, it's a sort of slate. Covered in, maybe it is slate, or it's a very, very beautifully chipped stone on the roof, but it looks slate with brick infill. It looks nice, doesn't it? Brick, flint. It looks like there's bits of flint in there, and brick, and those mullioned windows. Horses and what's the name going through there. What a lovely place. Oh, I didn't mean to go there. There's a nice Georgian house. What a lovely collection. Now, this is how you should... Oh, for God's sake. Bloody Google. I just want to look through there. No. So frustrating. Oh, stop it. Google, what is the matter with you? Just inch forward. No, it just won't do it. It won't do it. Swine. Anyway, there's the new inn. I'm having a rough old day today. I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But it looks very nice, doesn't it? You used to be able to go... Oh, yeah, I was going to say... Wow, there's such a... That looks like an old school. I bet that's an old school there. See, look, normally you can just edge along. That's what I wanted to do. Just edge along a little bit. Quite why it won't let me. The swine. There's the church. Wow, look at that tower related to the tiny little body there. Very nice. The old market house. Didn't mean to do that, sorry. Oh, there's an old building. Anyway, sorry about that. You can't. The little Google car did not drive down that part of the street. How do you know? How do you know that, Nigel? How do you know all these things? You know too much. That's a closed old shop. Look, two closed old shops close together. Nice village square. Anyway, that's what's his name, Doodah, wherever the place is. A copy of Patterson's Roads, that, besides showing us the way, did duty as a sufficient guidebook as the following note on Cerney Abbey. A small town consisting of 4 or 5 indifferently built streets is situated in the pleasant valley surrounded by steep hills and watered by the river Cerne, from which it derives its name. The place is, however, only remarkable for the remains of its abbey, which, though not extensive, are highly interesting and consist principally of a gatehouse, or chief entrance, a large square, stately, embattled tower of 3 stories, in tolerable preservation. There is also a large and magnificent stone barn, supported by buttresses, standing at a short distance from the gateway, that still receives the produce from the Abbey farm. An immense chalk hill, terminated by mountainous prominence, rises hence, on the declivity of which may be traced a gigantic figure cut in the chalk in the manner of a famous white horse in Berkshire. It represents a man holding a club in his right hand and extending the other. The figure is 180 feet high and proportionably made. Doesn't mention anything about the giant you-know-what, does it? I quote this to show the style of the guidebook description that our road-travelling ancestors were provided with. It will be noted that the account is concise. The reader is not worried with a long, wordy history of the origin and rise and fall of the Abbey. It gives you in a short space all that's absolutely needed to know. It simply suggests what is best worth seeing, and then leaves the traveller to make his own discoveries in detail. I even think that some modern guidebook compilers might take a hint from almost forgotten Patterson. After having rested and refreshed ourselves at our inn, we sallied forth in search of the ruins. On our way we passed an ancient village church in the cathedral, a miniature with a very fine perpendicular tower. We just looked at that, I think. On this tower is a niche, with a canopy over the enshrining, a carved stone statue of Virgin Mary with the child in her arms. The face of the Virgin has either been wilfully damaged or much weather-worn. We should imagine the latter, as anyone who would damage the head might easily have damaged in part or whole the rest of the figure. It is strange that this superstitious image should have escaped the vigilant eye and fury of the Puritans. Possibly Cerney Abbey, being so out of the way, world may account for this bit of popish carving being preserved. The exceedingly picturesque old ivy-grown gateway with the remains of a fine tithe barn and some unimportant ruins are all that now exist of the once of the one of are now all that exist of one of the most stately abbeys in England. The state of the abbey, surrounded by woods and encircled by hills, is most bewitching. A fairer sight on which to rise a fane of solitary prayer could hardly be imagined or desired. Close by, where the abbey stood, rises a crystal stream of the purest water. According to tradition, this marks the spot where St. Austin struck his staff into the ground, from whence issued the fairest well stream that runneth on the earth. There are, however, many similar traditions elsewhere of other saints with their staves and springs flowing from the land where the latter touched. Sometimes, by way of variety, the staff itself took root, flourished, and grew into a tree, as in the medieval legend of St. Joseph at Armour something or other I can't pronounce at Glastonbury. The saint, approaching Glastonbury on foot and being tired, sat himself down on a hill overlooking the spot, at the same time sticking his staff into the ground, the hill since then going by the name of Weary All Hill, the staff being the common hawthorn. The dry, dead stick henceforth became living, grew and blossomed every winter on Christmas Day, so it is said, until the stern Puritans came and grubbed it up. Whatever the virtues of the miraculous tree, it could not save itself any more from the relics. Whatever the virtues of the miraculous tree, it could not save itself any more than the relics of the saint could. And here is a picture, ladies and gentlemen, of said ivy-covered, what's the name? The gatehouse of Cerney Abbey. I'm trying to get that so it... There we go. I don't know what that looks like in real life. He has a big club. Is that what it is? It's a big club. Is that not the one with the giant penis? Which is the one with the giant penis sticking up? Love Cerney Abbey. My sister lives near there, says Andrew Norris. He has a big club. The advantage of having a computer with two screens, TurboStream, have 3 different type ages of maps open, plus I can Google images. Yes. It looks rather grand. The school is the police station, says Nigel Sadler. Is it? Gosh. Let's have a look at the Cerney Abbey. Let me just get the board of keys. Cern. I've put Burn. That's no good, is it? Cerney Abbey. Dorset. Yes. Is there another Cerney Abbey? Here we go. So it's pretty much the same. It's a bit of a small picture. Is that a better one? No, that's no good either. Is that the same page? Bit. Go away. Bog off. Nice Thistle. Thistle, where have you gone? Oh, interesting. So that's it, is it? Oh, here's a thing that shows you what it must have looked like. Let's have a look at that. There we go. So where's the gatehouse? Is that the gatehouse there? Looks like the gatehouse, or is it one of these? Abbey something. Abbey Hall. Oh, Abbey Hall. Northern Gatehouse. Well, that's obviously not it. Where is and that's Abbey Street. Where's that? Looks like that bit, doesn't it? Tall enough. That's got to be there, part of the hall. I wonder if any of these buildings are here. Lovely. Cerney Abbey, a conjectural restoration. Everybody likes a bit of conjecture, don't they? Well, maybe they don't. I don't know. I have a lino cut, says Andrew Norris, of that gateway. I'll post it on the Facebook page. Yes, that would be interesting. Do send it in If you like a lot of chocolate in your biscuit, join our club, says Michael White, apropos of. Wonderful illustrations in this book. He writes flowery, and I don't mind that really, but his illustrations are remarkable, aren't they? They are very, very good. We're going to finish in a second. I'm just looking to see if we're coming to the end of the chapter. Not for a while. So I think we might finish there, actually. Not great Arthur's tomb, nor holy Joseph's grave, from sacrilege had power their sacred bones to save. I think we'll pause there. I haven't been reading terribly well. I apologise for that. Been in a bit of a grouchy mood, really, today. Oh, yes, I read that. So, brilliant. Okay, let's finish there. I've got to do a bit of Mike Stevens says, better late than never. Sorry about this, Mike, but we're just going to call a halt to the proceedings. But you can watch it all again. Of course, I'm waiting for my head to rise. My bread to rise. I'm waiting for my headache to go. Looking forward to having a chat with Andrew Norris a little bit later, but I've got to go back to my editing to get tomorrow's video sorted. And then I will chat to Andrew, and then I shall light the essay, and then I shall get something to eat, which would be lovely. That's my day. Hope your day is going better than mine. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening. No show tonight, and I shall be back again tomorrow, and we'll have a pleasant day. Thank you very much, Lee. I hope my headache goes. Yeah, so do I. So I've got to try and find. I know I've got some paracetamol somewhere, but it's just been building. I didn't get much sleep last night, which is probably what it is. Charlie Cooper, thanks for interesting. Hope your headache goes. Thank you so much. Thumbs up, everyone, if you. That's very kind. And I will catch up with you tomorrow. Take care. All the best, and thanks for coming along. Anyway, bye for now. Bye.